Okay, so just to review mercantilism, it's a system of government. It's an economic system where you try to hoard as much wealth as possible. Those of you who weren't here yesterday, who didn't get the notes from the previous day, just go to the Google Classroom. This PowerPoint's available there. Ask a friend later when we're done for the day. From that previous slide and adding on to this one, again, it's important to note that the Europeans didn't just come up with this system themselves. When they started acting it out on the rest of the world, they found these ideas, these methods, these systems elsewhere and started implementing it themselves as well. Okay. So here is a bit of an image of how mercantilism works. So again, I want you to focus on the main continents here. We have Europe, Africa, North America, South America. Okay. Look at where the arrows are pointing and look at what they include. So what do you see going over to Europe? If you could read that. Some of you might not be able to read it. Whale oil. What do you think they use whale oil for? Just because we don't use that anymore. What'd you say? For machines. They might have also actually used it as people use oil and gas now as a fuel source. Okay. Maybe did some cooking and whatnot, right? What else do we see that is written down? Rice. Okay. Rice is food. It's calories. It's energy. Rice is love, right? Absolutely. No doubt about that. What else are we seeing that's going to Europe? Tobacco. Lumber.
Where does it say slaves?
Right? We have sugar, wood. So a lot of this is materials. It's a lot of raw materials. Does anyone kind of understand what I mean by that? Raw materials. What does that mean, roughly?
It's like just something you can use to make other things like houses or.
Yeah, right? So houses don't grow on trees. Houses come from trees. We cut them down, we chop the wood into pieces, you use the wood, right? So raw materials is the ingredients necessary to make stuff. So with mercantilism, a lot of what's happening is you're taking those materials, the raw materials, the empires that were acting this out on North and South America, bring it to them, and then what are they transferring back? Well, guns, clothing, iron, alcohol, various manufactured goods, so anything with metal, right? That was very useful in North America because for whatever reason in North America, South America, they hadn't figured out how to do metallurgy, which is essentially take the raw iron and whatever, melt it down and make it into metal tools. Okay, how much metal do you think you interact with today? A lot. So what of your possessions has metal? Computers, glasses, phone, right? Do you think there's metal in your earphones?
Yeah.
Definitely, right? Small wires. You got jewelry on as well, right? So metal is very important in our life with manufactured goods. Also luxurious goods. For whatever reason, people really like felt hats, which is basically kind of the skin from an animal or you take the hide of an animal and make it into a hat. Does anyone here have any real animal fur products? My big coat. You do?
Animal furs, like wolf fur,
Yeah.
fox tail.
Okay. Have you ever worn this stuff?
I think so.
It keeps you very warm, right? Did you mention dog hair?
Yeah.
Not sure if dog hair has the same properties. Some of us pointed out of Africa, we see a big line going through to the Caribbean islands. A lot of slaves were transported from Africa to North and South America. And again, this is kind of old, you've already read it, but what I've learned from Thomas Sowell and from other historians is that a lot of what is taught in history is that, well, white people went to Africa and they captured black people and then took them as slaves. But what I've learned is that there were already slave markets that existed in Africa. Thomas Sowell, who's a black guy, I'll reference because apparently that matters, an image of him is up there in the top left. One of his funnier quotes or sayings is that a white person was more likely to catch malaria in Africa than another black person, right? So what they were doing was they were just buying they were giving the African kings, whoever was running these slave farms might be a terrible word to use for this, but whoever was participating in that slave trade, they'd give them gold, other valuable metals, right? Whatever thing they needed that was valuable in exchange for humans, and they brought them over to the Caribbean islands and they sold them. The Caribbean islands were actually known as Hispaniola back in their slave trading days, and so that was the center for where slaves were then transported into places like the southern parts of America, well, all over America actually. And in the South America, there was already enough indigenous people there. I mean, they used many of them as slaves, and many of them were conquered and died due to disease. And then what you're not seeing here, for those of you who can read that, is there's not a lot of exchange of items, possessions, valuable, refined materials between North and South America. And again, that's because these are colonized. They're like satellite states of Europe, and so they're not allowed to trade and make wealth, right? The valuable things from those areas goes to Europe. They, remanufacture them and sell them back. Okay, and that's how mercantilism works. I would argue it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with religion. It's just an economic system that prioritizes that, well, whoever's in charge is going to make the money, right? And again, I would remind you that the Europeans learned it from the Arabs. Okay, we'll watch this video real quick.